Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And I am excited about tonight's show. Don't forget, you can like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I'm also on the radio, a radio station in Noonan called WQEE 5 days a week, 2 to 3. You can check out the show Monday through Friday. On the show, I have a frequent guest. He's come on this Monday night. It's Phillip Jordan. Phillip, I got you on. First of all, welcome. We got a big game Friday in high school football. I had Van Riggs on earlier today, the voice of the Opelika Bulldogs, and your Dothan Wolves taking on the Opelika Bulldogs. It is a win-in situation. Winner goes to the playoffs, and the loser of that game, well, they're going to need some help. They're going to need like Enterprise to lose to like Jag and Auburn lose to Smith Station. But Phillip, how you been?
I'm doing good, doing good. Thank you for having me on once again. I always appreciate it. Yeah, it's a big game. It's basically a playoff game Friday night there in Opelika. It's gonna be a big game. Um, and just from the Dothan side of things, it's very interesting if they win because then you could have a three-way tie between Auburn, Enterprise, and Dothan for second place. Because Dothan beat Enterprise, Enterprise beat Auburn, but then Auburn beat Dothan. So then it will come down to some tiebreakers, and maybe perhaps Dothan's win over Baker earlier this year. I believe they're second in 7A Region 1 could actually put Dothan over the top for number two. But a lot of football to be played these next 2 weeks.
That would be great if Dothan did get the number 2 seed. They would host a playoff game in the first round of the 7A playoffs. They're 6-2, like you mentioned, and they're having a great season. Opelika, they're 4-5. They're having a great season as well. They're 4-2 in the region. You look at Opelika, they lost to Thompson, they lost to Theodore. I think that Opelika is going to be just fine. I was talking to Van Riggs, and Opelika does not miss out on the playoffs. If they miss the playoffs, this is their second year in a row. They were a juggernaut in 6A, but making that transition to 7A has been challenging because you got Central, Auburn in their region, and now with Dothan, Enterprise, it's just a gauntlet of a schedule. And I can't believe that we're going to have a talented team that is going to be missing out on the playoffs.
We had two last year because this is a down year for Prattville. Prattville's usually
Exactly.
pretty good. So last year you had Opelika and Prattville who did not make the playoffs, which were both playoff quality teams that Dothan beat down the stretch. So it's a tough region. We do the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show each week. I sit in as producer, Jerry and Ken host. You can hear every Thursday on 96.9 The Legend, 8 o'clock. And he always talks about, Coach Kennedy always talks about 7A Region 2 is like the SEC of 7A.
Right.
It is the toughest region it is. And Richard, I don't know if you remember this last year, because 7A Region 2 is always matched up with the Mobile region, 7A Region 1. Last year, uh, our region was 4-0 against the Mobile region. That
That's
just
right.
shows you.
Foley, Baker.
And
Yeah.
Mobile is really good.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
lot of talented players and talented teams out of there. That just says a lot. And then, of course, Dothan had to play Auburn, and they got beat in the second round. And then I think Enterprise plays Central. But yeah, it's a tough region week in, week out. There's no gimme games. Even look at Percy Julian. They're
They
four and
beat
four.
Prattville. Yeah,
They're
they beat
they're
Prattville.
they're 4-4, 2-4 in region play, but they're playing well. I think Smith Station has some rebuilding to do, and Jag too as well. But look, they've got talented players too. You don't need to look past them. But yeah, it's tough. It's week in and week out. Dothan was fortunate last week; they were off last week after the Enterprise win. Epic win there. Win
Huge win.
off a double pass to win the game. Receiver with the pass to another one. But yeah, it was it's been fun. It's tough. It's every week. You just got to be ready to play every single week.
Big game this Friday night. You could catch it on 96.9 The Legend. You can also catch it on 97.9 at The Kicker up in Opelika. So you got two competitive radio stations that are fighting to broadcast this game. I mean, if you're a Dothan fan, you listen to 96.9 The Legend. If you're an Opelika fan, listen to Van Riggs on 97.9. Who's the play-by-play announcer again with Dothan? You had him on your show before, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. Our play-by-play guy, that is Jerry Coleman. He has
Jerry
a
Coleman, that's right.
vast knowledge of football and basketball, high school sports in the Wiregrass, and the color analyst is Ken Lambert. I have been working with Jerry and Ken now. Our first year together was 2017 at a different station in town when it was the Dothan Tigers for Dothan and Northview consolidated. We didn't do anything in 2018, and then in 2019, the first year of Dothan Wolves, 969 The Legend brought us all on. So I would say what I'm about to do something that's not popular on radio or podcast. Let's see, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. This is our 6th year as a group together. So great guys. I've learned so much from. But yeah, Jerry Coleman, vast knowledge. He's been doing this for a while, doing football here in the Wiregrass.
And I will be up in that area for Friday night football on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, as we are going to be calling the Glenwood Chambers Academy game up in Lafayette. Myself and Thrift Behringer. We'll try to get some score updates. I'll give you a shout out on the radio. And then next week, you might want to pay attention to this one, Phillip, because this could be playoff implications as well. Smith Station is taking on Auburn on November the 3rd at Smith Station. I mean, look, Smith Station did get their first win of the season, beating Jag. Like you said, they are rebuilding under first-year head coach Bryant Harrison. They went down to Dothan and they lost 66-0. They were completely outmanned and outmatched. This Dothan Wolves team, 6-2, they're having a special season. I mean, but it wasn't always like this. I mean, what was like a couple of years ago, Dothan wasn't considered a powerhouse. Where did the change come from? How come all of a sudden Dothan is now a team that can make a deep run in the playoffs?
I wonder really what it is because year one as the Dothan Wolves in 2019, they were still in 6A, and that's under head coach Smitty Grider, who's doing a really good job at Benjamin Russell right now. They won 6A Region 2, but they were the size of a 7A. I mean, when you merge two 6A schools, you're going to be a big school. That's
Of
just
course.
how it is. And then when they moved into 7A, I think the COVID year didn't help. 2020, there was a lot of starting and stopping with Dothan. I remember there was a couple of games that didn't get played, and there was a game where they had to go to Prattville. I remember this, Richard. It was a rainy week in Dothan, and so the Dothan wasn't even able to practice that week, and they had to go up to Prattville and play because of the weather. It was a bad deal. And then the next year, it just, things didn't work. And then you jump up in that competition. Just a lot of different factors, I think, that just went into it. And then you bring Coach Kennedy in. He runs a different offense that Smitty Grider did. And that's another thing. There was a situation. I'm not going to go into details. People can look it up. The offensive coordinator, who was really, I think, the right-hand man to Smitty Grider, was no longer the offensive coordinator. I just leave it at that. There was a situation I just don't want to get into. But that also, I think that hurt Dothan to a degree. But the offenses are different. Dothan's always had good running backs. Smitty Grider ran more of a spread offense. It was predominantly run, but still threw the ball. Your traditional spread. Jed Kennedy runs more of the single wing kind of an option, not an option offense, but you're not going to throw the ball a lot. If you throw the ball 10 times in the offense, they've thrown the ball a whole lot. So it's built on the running game. And I do remember when Jed Kennedy got hired at Dothan. I had him on the podcast at the time, the Wiregrass High School Football Report. He talked about how Dothan's got running backs. And last year, Raymond Blackman was the star, and he focused it on that. And now this year, it's a Tamarian Peterson and A.J. Alexander. Sam Broadway, quarterback, can make some plays on the ground too as well. Jaden Barnes is another player. He's kind of like a hybrid, plays receiver, plays running back. They kind of do a little bit of both with him. So I think that's really what the difference is. It's just kind of like how the operation is run too. Like I said, Smitty Grider did a great job getting it going with Dothan Wolves. Won 6A Region 2 that first year, and then things just didn't go. I think there's a lot of bad luck in there too. So that's a long way of saying what I had to say.
Sure.
But
That's all right.
that's kind of like the way I see it. I don't think Smitty Grider did a bad job, but Jay Kennedy comes in and he's really taken that next step with Dothan.
All right, Philip, let's talk about some other high school football teams down in the Wiregrass area. Let's start with Eufaula. They got the big win over Rehoboth. You cover kind of both teams. Eufaula's on the borderline of the Chattahoochee Valley and the Wiregrass. They did lose to Charles Henderson 51-31. Out of all the teams in the Wiregrass, besides Dothan, what team stands out to you that could make a deep run for a championship?
Well, of course, there's Enterprise, who's right up the road.
Enterprise is in the Wiregrass. That's right.
Yes, they're like about 30, 40 minutes away from Dothan. So that's why I wasn't so. It was a road game for Dothan, but they had a lot of the home crowd
Oh, of course.
there, and that's a big rivalry game between Enterprise and Dothan. So Enterprise is a team to look out for. They play good defense. Uh, Opelika found out about their run game. They could run the ball, both with the running backs and the quarterback. Eric Winters can break one out too as well. Keon Dunlap, the running back for them, had over 100 yards in that game. I think he had 3 touchdowns against Opelika. Other teams to look out for. Eufaula's always a team. They're super talented. I was surprised to find out this past week that was their first time winning a region championship since 2010. It's been a
Nice.
while. It's been a while. Now they had jumped up in 6A Region 2 a few years ago, but they're 5A Region
They're
2.
now in 5A. They do have a Super Bowl winning coach.
Yes. Yeah, Jarrell Jernigan.
Jarrell Jernigan won a Super Bowl with the Giants.
Yes. Their color analyst, Doug Applin, give him a shout out. He's the guy that got my start in radio. So if it wasn't for Doug Applin, I wouldn't be doing this. I give him a little shout out too as well. Other teams, now Andalusia's kind of borderline Wiregrass. We have a big reach with our audience over at 96.9 The Legend, and we do talk about Andalusia. Andalusia's undefeated. They're playing a big game in their region in 4A. They will be playing Catholic Montgomery. I believe it's Catholic
Oh,
Montgomery.
that is going to be huge.
Both teams are 9-0, 6-0 in region play. That's going to be a big game. That is going to decide the region. 3A, maybe not as much. 2A, I'm going to show a little favoritism here, Richard. My alma mater, the Cottonwood Bears, are 7-0, 6-0 region play. First time they have won a region title since 2010. Coach Harrison has rebuilt the Cottonwood program. A lot of your audience may not know this, but Cottonwood at a time in the 80s and 90s and even parts of the 2000s was always a powerhouse. You could just expect them in the playoffs for years. They kind of fell on hard times. They were not making the playoffs. Coach Harrison came in first year to make the playoffs, but you saw improvement. Then the next year they went, I think they won 4 games, didn't make the playoffs. Then last year they won 5 games, made the postseason, and now they're 7-0. King Campbell, their running back, is really, really good. They have a bunch of other players there too as well. He's a freshman. So Cottonwood's won, and of course in 1A, the Elba Tigers. Coach Seaving is a regular on the show on the Wiregrass Daily News Sports. And they have a player by name Alvin Henderson, who's a junior. I think he had like 50 offers from different schools. He narrowed that down to 10. So that's kind of like a roundabout way of that. There's some of the teams down here in the Wiregrass that are doing big things. I know Coach Seaving told me this before the season, and this also was in the local paper, the Dothan Eagle. Last year they went undefeated in regular season. They got beat either in the first or second round in the playoffs. He said that left a bad taste in that team's mouth. So they really seem like a team that's on a mission this year to win a state championship.
All right, Philip, let's go ahead and switch gears from high school football to college football as Alabama and Auburn were in action Saturday. I want to start with Alabama taking on Tennessee because I honestly feel that now that Alabama has figured out their woes and Jalen Milroe is a decent enough quarterback, I think that Alabama can run the table, including beating LSU. Although I think that Jaden Daniels, that his Heisman moment could come out in Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. Tennessee was up 20-7 at the half. They went up 13-0. It should have been 21-0. That red zone defense by Bama caused Tennessee to kick 2 field goals. That up-tempo offense, Bama couldn't stop them. They couldn't stop them. But the halftime adjustments that Nick Saban made, I want to know what he said to his players at the half, because that has to be motivated. It's got to be the biggest motivating speech of all time, that what movies are made of, because Alabama came out in that second half and punched Tennessee in the mouth.
Yeah, they did. It started off with a big run. I mean, the first possession of Alabama that had in the second half, big run, long touchdown pass. And I really feel like that galvanized the entire team because Alabama's defense was different in the second half. Tennessee did not score any points. And you're right, Tennessee should have been up 21-0 because not only did they have to settle for field goal, they were inside the 5-yard line. You're playing Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You have got to put the foot on the throat and you got to put them away early. And they didn't. Now,
Nope.
I will say this about Alabama. They haven't played a complete game this year from start to finish. I'm just going to say this. If that was LSU wouldn't have been kicking field goals inside the 5 because we've seen Brian Kelly. He is not afraid to go for it on 4th down. Um, it's good probably both teams are off, but I'm still seeing some inconsistencies with Jalen Milroe. He is great with the deep ball. The intermediate, the short, and the medium passing game's not there. Alabama's run game is not consistent. Um, Jace McClellan hasn't really broken off a bunch of big runs. Neither has Rodell Williams. And also, I think, and you heard, if you watched the game on CBS, you heard Gary Danielson talk about how Jalen Milroe doesn't want to be known as a running quarterback. I think they need him to be more of that. Bring in that element of his game as a runner. But I think receivers are getting better. Obviously, Jermaine Burton is a go-to guy. Isaiah Bond has played well in recent weeks too as well. But that man, I'm already ready for that matchup at LSU. I'm already thinking about it, already talking about it. It's going to be a fun deal. But yeah, Alabama, they still got some stuff to wrinkles to fix though. They just not consistent, and the pre-snap penalties are still a problem.
All right, Phillip, let's talk about Auburn
Do we
because
have to?
I look, I know. Look, Auburn, I looked at the schedule. I mean, these are all winnable games. I mean, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, New Mexico State. I mean, we're looking at the mid. I think they're going to go 7-5. I mean, look, their offense was non-existent in that second half, but you got to play to your strengths. I don't necessarily think that Peyton Thorne is a good quarterback, but I do think that Robbie Ashford can make plays when needed. But it was 14-14. You come out in the second half, you punt the football 4 times, you throw a pick. You had a garbage touchdown at the end of the game. Yes, Ole Miss is a good team. But I think that this, in Hugh Freeze's first year, you always seen Auburn teams that were talented. Gus Malzahn's teams, Gene Chiswick's team, when they won the national championship in 2010. There's hardly any talent on this team, and you have Brian Harsin to thank for that. He ran Bo Nix out of town, and they just don't have the skilled position players that are, depth-wise. Just give this team time. They will be fine. I think that Hugh Freeze in year 2, you'll start seeing an improvement. You'll start seeing things turn around. I actually thought that the Georgia game, I mean, they played their best game. It took Georgia, utilizing Brock Bowers to win that game, and now he's hurt. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, Auburn, they got blown out by LSU. I mean, LSU is great, especially at Death Valley. This was a home game that they should have won, and Ole Miss just happened to win the game because Auburn's offense just didn't show up in the second half.
Yeah, Auburn's allergic to the forward pass. I think someone needs to update them in the game of football that you can throw it forward. I mean, that's a part of it. But on a serious note, Hugh Freeze needs to make a decision. It either needs to be Thorne or Ashford. He needs to quit with the back and forth with the two of them. That's one thing. And you know what agitated me about that game? As somebody that covers this team, so you did the double pass. You bring Holden Garner in to do the double pass. Richard, if you think he's good enough to throw a pass in a game, why isn't he out there actually playing? And another thing, I think Hugh Freeze is being hard headed. I think he wants to throw the ball because that's what he's always been successful at. Wherever he's been, Ole Miss and Liberty, he's been able to throw the ball. That's not the case at Auburn. I do not think it's fully on the quarterback's shoulders. I don't think the receivers are getting open. And how many times have we seen these receivers drop passes? That's also been an issue for Auburn so far. But Auburn needs to just rely on the run game. Jarquez Hunter, Brian Petit, Damari Alston practiced last week. Now he was in a yellow non-contact jersey, but he is practicing. He is so maybe he's getting closer to being back. And but you look at the schedule they have coming up. The Mississippi State game is the most important game of the season because I think if you lose this game, you can throw a bowl game out the window. But if you win, you're 4-4. You should beat this team. This team was as bad as Auburn is on offense. Mississippi State was a whole lot worse against Arkansas. And if Will Rogers is still out and they're going with Mike Wright, this is a game Auburn, I think, should be able to win. Okay, and you're at home. Next, you go to Vanderbilt. That's not really a road game. There will be more Auburn fans in Nashville
absolutely.
than there'll be Vanderbilt fans. So you win that, you're 5-4. You're looking good because you still have New Mexico State on the schedule. So you can circle that. Okay, that's your 6th win. You beat Mississippi State, then you should beat Vanderbilt. You're going to a bowl game. That Arkansas game is very interesting to me. This is a team that just lost 7-3 Mississippi State. They've lost, was it 5-6 games in a row now? They're 2-6 now, right? Arkansas.
Yeah.
They've lost 6 games in a row. 5 in the SEC. Then had that BYU mess too, where they blew that lead. They just fired Dan Enos, their offensive coordinator, and I wonder where Arkansas's mindset is going to be when they get to that game in November. You can win that one. But I think, too, with Auburn, if you beat Mississippi State, you beat Vanderbilt, you've got 2 wins in a row. You've kind of created some confidence within your football team. Then you do that. So, the thing about it, I think most people would have looked at Auburn's schedule and would have said, okay, you could probably win the first 3. The Cal, and I said this before the season started, that Cal game, that was a must-win. They win that. You're 3-0. But then you lose to A&M. I think some people maybe came in. I was one of them came into the season. That was a winnable game. Average offense, you win that game. Just the way it is. Nobody thought they'd beat Georgia. LSU was going to be tough, and so it was Ole Miss. So a lot of people probably saw 3-4 or 4-3 as the start. But I think it's just been how anemic the passing game has been. Because you thought with Hugh Freeze coming in, Auburn was going to be able to throw the football better than what they have been doing lately. And you brought up Brian Harsin, and I want to say something. I've seen this online, Richard. They said, Will, and I'm going to assume people on Twitter talk like this. Will, Brian Harsin did better his first year. I want to throw this pen at my phone or the computer screen when I hear that. You know what? Bo Nix was on Brian Harsin's first team. Tank Bigsby was on Brian Harsin's first team. Jarquez Hunter was there too. He's still there now. Oh, yeah, and on defense, you had a guy like Derek Hall and Colby Wooden on defense. There's nobody on this Auburn team right now, probably outside Jarquez Hunter, that's at that level of talent. He doesn't have it right now.
No.
So if Hugh Freeze can get this team to a bowl game, go 6-6, go 7-5, get to a bowl game, create some form of momentum going into next year, we know what Hugh Freeze can do in recruiting. Look, he missed on quarterback at Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne is not probably what he thought he was going to be. Some of his receivers are not there yet, but people just need to kind of – I'm going to use an Aaron Rodgers. You know I'm a Packers fan. Everybody needs to RELAX. Relax. It's year 1. Brian Harsin destroyed the talent level of this Auburn football team. Hugh Freeze said before the season when he arrived on campus that this is not the talent level of what an Auburn football team should look like. He's going to get them there. That's why when he first got the job at Media Days, he talked about year 3 will be the big year he will be judged on. You got to give the man time. But we have seen that he missed on the quarterback. It happens. Unfortunately, it did happen, and they don't really have one they can play right now. I do feel like he'll hit the portal again for quarterback after this year. But I just think Auburn fans just need to relax and have some patience with Hugh Freeze. And like I said, Richard, you go 7-5 or 6-6, and then just think about that. What if they go 7-5 and win a bowl game? That's 8 wins in year 1. That's a success.
Absolutely. Yeah, that fan who had that hot take, that was a worse hot take than Emmanuel Acho. So I just think that we just need to calm down.
I think Josh Pate done taken care of that one for us.
Oh, yeah, he went on a rant on his show, which I loved, by the way. That was amazing. So me and Phillip, you and I watch Josh Pate's show like religiously. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and I know Georgia was on a bye. Brock Bowers is pretty much going to be out for the season. Maybe might come back for the SEC championship game. But Georgia, Florida, this is always this is a very, stressful game for me as a Georgia fan. I'm always on pins and needles. It doesn't matter if Georgia is superior over Florida. Georgia in the past has found ways to lose this game when Florida was an unranked team and they upset Georgia. I'm a little nervous about this. I think if Graham Mertz plays out of his mind, I think if Florida just relies on Ricky Pearsall and they just, with Trevor Etienne, if Florida just uses their playmakers, Florida could pull off the upset. And really, the Georgia fan will say, well, if Florida wins, oh, well, Georgia didn't have Brock Bowers. To be honest with Phillip, I just don't think, and I'm going to get Georgia fans mad. I'm going to get them riled up. This is my hot sports take, and I'm going to have it on my show because it's my show. I think Michigan wins the national championship this year. I honestly do. I mean, it's hard to three-peat. And now you got your biggest weapon that could be out for the season.
Well, here's the thing with that. With Michigan, I would give Ohio State a better shot against Georgia. Because I say that because of this. I say that because of this. Georgia versus Michigan, I'm going to equate it to the same as Georgia versus Kentucky. And I mean that this way. And if anybody from Michigan watches or listens to your show, let me explain myself. First, Michigan is more talented, way more talented than Kentucky. Let me just say it up front. But the style of play that they play is very similar to Georgia, just like Kentucky. Even when Kentucky's had better years than this year, before, when they were a 10-win, 9-win team, when they ran into Georgia, they struggled because they play just like Georgia. Georgia sees that style of play every day in practice. That's why I don't think Michigan would be able to line up against Georgia. And let's face it, a lot of these games Georgia's in, I think they're sleepwalking part of the season. I think they're not 100% invested because they feel like, one, their schedule, and two, they just get on the field. They should beat the team they're playing. But Ohio State, on the other hand, I think they have the ability to give Georgia a game. One, Ohio State's better defensively this year than they were last year. And then Georgia has shown some lapses in their defense this year, and I'm not quite sure they have anybody on that team that could guard Marvin Harrison Jr. as well.
I don't think so either.
But I just feel like the style that Michigan wants to play, if they play Georgia, Georgia sees that every day in practice. And let's be honest, probably against better talent. Their toughest competition may be practice some days, just like Alabama used to say that all the time. The hardest thing they had to go through is practice, not actually the games on Saturdays. So, but they're going to have to. I'm going to be interested this Saturday against Florida because for Carson Beck, Brock Bowers is his safety valve. That's his safety net. When things, you mentioned the Auburn game earlier. What did he do every time Georgia had a big 3rd and 10? Go find Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Especially in the second half. Who is that guy now? I think Ladd McConkey should be the guy just because he's a veteran. The other receivers need to step up. Oscar Delp, he needs to come up big. It's time for him to step up because, look, he's going to be in that role next year when Brock Bowers is gone completely when he's in the National Football League. And then, Dominic Lovett, Smith at receiver. All these guys that they have at Georgia, somebody's going to step up and be that guy for Carson Beck. And now let's find out. Let's find out what kind of quarterback and what a leader Carson Beck is because we all know that offense is built around Brock Bowers.
Should be exciting. 3:30 kickoff on CBS. The Georgia-Florida game down in Jacksonville, Florida. I can't wait. Phillip, before we get out of here, let's close the show talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Because right now, we should all be happy as Falcons fans. They are in first place in the NFC South. But Desmond Ridder is a turnover machine. He had 3 fumbles again. He had 3 interceptions the week before. He gave the game away to the Washington Commanders. But the Atlanta Falcons found a way to win. They do some good things. And I'm not going to knock Desmond Ridder completely because he does good things. He's got to cut down on the mistakes. But Arthur Smith has just got so much faith in his quarterback. If it doesn't work out, it's going to backfire because Arthur Smith is going to get fired. But the Falcons do have an easy schedule. I think they make the playoffs in spite of Desmond Ridder. And Arthur Smith gets to keep his job. And Desmond Ridder probably goes into next season as the quarterback. I mean, what do you think about, can Desmond Ridder cut down on his mistakes and be a decent quarterback, or has the ship sailed already?
Well, I mean, let's face it. He wasn't a full-time starter last year. I mean,
No,
him and
Marcus Mariota.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
in a degree, I mentioned I'm a Packers fan. Like a lot of Packers fans are now wanting to jump ship on Jordan Love. I'm like, in theory, and when it comes on the field playing time, Jordan Love's rookie. And I feel the same thing about Desmond Ridder. It's year one. So I think you kind of just go through this year, unless it just gets worse with the turnovers and you just start losing and losing and losing and losing. Then it's different. They should win this Sunday against Tennessee because Tennessee does not have Ryan Tannehill. I have not been impressed with Malik Willis whenever he has started. And if they play Will Levis, look, that'll be the first time he's ever played at a real NFL game. So you should beat the Titans this week. But yeah, just the turnovers. And the thing about Atlanta, they're completely different than they were last year. They were a run-first football team last year. This year, they're throwing the ball. I mean, Drake London has shown good things. You've got Kyle Pitts. They're doing good things with the receivers. The defense is solid, but they should have beat Tampa Bay more than just by 3 points. If they don't turn the ball over like they did, they win that game by 10 points at least. And it's not coming down to a kick at the end. I'm shocked. I honestly thought New Orleans was going to run away with the South. I just thought they had the more talent. But that team, I don't know if you watched them on Thursday night any, they have red zone issues. They were 2 for 5 in the red zone against Jacksonville, and that's been a problem for them all year long. They've got the talent. There's no excuse why New Orleans shouldn't be as good. I think if they don't make the playoffs, there needs to be a decision made at head coach. I think that's the problem there. But with Arthur Smith, yeah, I think he makes some questionable decisions. And I know Bijan Robinson apparently wasn't right on Sunday, but still they need to use him more at running back instead of receiver. I like to see him do that a little bit more with him. But I've been impressed outside of the turnovers by Desmond Ridder. I've been impressed with Atlanta. They've done some good things, and they could have a better record than what they do, but they're in first place, and let's kind of see how it goes. Like I said, they should beat the Tennessee Titans on Sunday.
Phillip, it is always great having you on the show. Before I get you out of here, tell all my listeners where they can find you on social media and how they can listen to your podcast.
You can check me out on social media at PJordanSEC. Listen to Wiregrass Daily News Sports. We're coming at you most days during the week. Mondays, I recap college, the high school football, and then during the rest of the week, we just do college football and some other stuff. You can also listen to the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show on that feed. It's wherever you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. You can check out my written work where I cover the Auburn Tigers over at Last Word on College Football. Try to get out 2 articles a week on them, a preview and a recap. So go check that out. I appreciate it.
Phillip, always a blast when I have you on my show, and definitely would love to have you come back.
Always down to come on.
All right, Phillip Jordan, everybody. It was a great interview, and I'm going to go back to watching the 49ers-Vikings game. I actually have the on pause. The Vikings were winning 16-7 at the half, and I'm going to go ahead and finish out the game. A little nervous on pins and needles, but actually Brock Purdy looked good. It's just the 49ers were shooting themselves in the foot a couple of times. All right, that's it. That is our show for tonight, Phillip. Have a great night, and I will talk to you later.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. We'll see you later, everybody. Bye.